the numbers are there. And I think whilst the general public are starting to hear the word autism more frequently, the gap between understanding, acceptance, and then inclusion are still, it's so vast.
All right, welcome to the Aussie Ambitions podcast. We've got a guest today. Her name's Kathrine Peereboom. She's the founder of Spectrum Support, and we're going to hear all about that. So I'll say welcome to Kathrine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Excellent. So it's nice and easy because you're local. You don't live too far away.
That's right.
So we're here in Southport on the Gold Coast. Are you a long-time resident?
No, actually. We relocated the family in December of 2019 from beautiful Sydney, but I tell you, it was the right thing for our family, and we love it here, and I'll never leave. I'll never leave.
That's it. So for everybody listening, obviously there's some major cities in Australia. Gold Coast is on the smaller side, but it's a paradise place to live, let's say.
Absolutely.
It's trying to get the mix of work and life. That's generally where people, not everyone has the chance to do that. So maybe that's what we'll touch on today, but thanks for joining us. What we just wanted to get a sense of is maybe what you're working on at the moment. Mm-hmm. And I think it sounds like we might have a chance to get you back a few times because there's lots of different facets to your life. But can you just tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am the wife to a very incredible husband, and we have three beautiful boys. Oliver, who's 7, Joshua, who's 6, and little Tyler, who is 5. And my boys are all on the autism spectrum. My older 2 boys also have intellectual disabilities. And the boys have a range of different comorbidities, which presents for them certain challenges in life that we try and navigate through every day as a family. The boys are non-verbal, which means that they don't use words to communicate. So we're still trying to find what works for them as a method for them to have their voice heard. And that's been a really wonderful road of discovery for just 3 different boys and 3 different systems that work for them, you know. So for us, you know, our boys are our life. We, for me personally, I started off my career as a young singer-dancer back in the day in Sydney, and sort of started my first gig working at Australia's Wonderland, which is a big theme park here, nowhere near the size of what you guys have in the United States, but it was great. I got to sing and dance for a living, and then I decided that I wanted to open a business and become a little bit more entrepreneurial. So got into the corporate sector, and hello, pussycat.
Oh, got a little special guest today. Oh, hello to you too. All right. Well, for those listening in that can't check out the YouTube, this is your chance to subscribe and see exactly all the characters that we'll be having on. We don't yet have a pet specialist. I'm going to hand this over to our studio captain here. Can you just you can take him out of the room? That's fine.
Likes the sound of the voice.
Yeah, no, wonderful. See, a little bit of a wild card here in the studio.
Yeah, absolutely. So sort of, you know, created my corporate career and got very successful in the sales and marketing realm. And then, you know, I got to a certain point where I wanted to become a mum, and having my beautiful children then sort of led me into the creation of Spectrum Support. And this is honestly where I have found my true purpose in life. You know, I always thought I wanted to be a pop star, or I wanted to climb the corporate ladder and sort of, get to a certain point in my corporate career. But I tell you, when I discovered spectrum support, and we really started to delve into how we could support the community, and how we really, I think the biggest thing for us was the fear. And any parent who has children with additional needs or special needs, they have this fear about what's going to happen when I can't be there to protect them, when I can't be there to stop the bullying. And bullying doesn't stop on the playground. It continues all in life. And even adults, we experience it in so many different settings. And it led me to start researching, how do I protect my kids? And I started to see a really huge gap between first responder education and the autistic community. And I knew I had to bridge that gap. So after years of research and sourcing global experts and speaking to people who have been doing this, I reached out to a huge section of the autism community, and we had a team of just close to 500 individuals with different levels of diagnoses and different age brackets, from teenagers to young adults to senior citizens who are on the spectrum and who have had interactions with law enforcement. And once I started to piece all of that together, I then worked with New South Wales Police Force, and that's where we partnered to create our very first pilot training. And the pilot training was such a huge success that they then decided that, yes, we want to make sure that our 17,000 strong force in New South Wales receive all of this training. We've actually developed, it's actually a 4-day course. It's an intensive course, but it's not for every level of officer. So, there are some hard-hitting topics that we specialise in, as well as just, the 000 call that you're going to get and somebody's in a heightened state, and that needs to be diffused. We talk about really intense things like, a young nonverbal 10-year-old girl who's been sexually assaulted, how do law enforcement delicately interview that young autistic girl to get the information. There's victims, there's perpetrators, there's homicide, detectives that we need to train. When Audrice, may she rest in peace, in Melbourne, was attacked in Melbourne Park by the autistic gentleman, that requires, even though he is a perp, we need to make sure that he's also understood for his autism and what that means, and we need to get the right people involved to interview. So our 4-day intensive course really does cover some very hard-hitting things, and I know it's not a very light subject to probably be talking about, but it is serious, and this happens literally every single day, whether it's in the public or it's not. I guess some of the things in the public in recent times is that we've seen a lot of young, predominantly young boys around that 14 to 15-year-old sort of mark who have been lost in the wilderness. And we lost young William Wall not long ago. We've had some successes in the search and rescue operations, but we're now working with the dog squad within law enforcement to be able to help them understand, once they find somebody who has gone missing, how do you again ensure that that person understands that you are safe, that you're not going to encroach on their personal space. And with autism, it's called a spectrum because the spectrum is so vast. And what will work for this individual will absolutely be the wrong thing to do for the next individual. So it's highly complicated, and it does require a really deep level of knowledge and education. So, yeah.
No, that's look. I love the passion that's coming in, and exactly we touched on where you became very familiar with the spectrum and how to manage it for within your own family unit, and then it's how society is, what's that interface between other people and what they may know or not know, and how to how you end up relating to these people. And there's all this sort of that's what kind of caught my attention, is to see what is the level of awareness in Australia for autism, first of all, and then within that, is there an understanding about what autism is and what comprises it, and the behavior, and how do you even, what are there negative stigmas, or is it generally well accepted? So those are some of the ones I thought might be an easier starting point just for those listening in. And I imagine it would be potentially people that have a child on the spectrum. It seems to me there's a struggle between public and private in dealing with this and working through it, and it's a lifelong adaptation.
Absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Autism, just when you're 18, just doesn't disappear. It's with you for life. With statistics continuing to increase. So here in Australia, we have 1 in 70 that are officially diagnosed. In the United States at the moment, it is 1 in 54. And those statistics for both countries are now several years old. It has been a 600% increase in the past 2 decades of diagnoses. So where it was 1 in 10,000, it's now such it's 1 in every 1 in every aeroplane. It's several people in a shopping center. It's on a train. There's it's the numbers are there, and I think whilst the general public are starting to hear the word autism more frequently, the gap between understanding, acceptance, and then inclusion are still it's so vast. We still have so much work to do. And look, I feel the prejudice for my children every time we're out in public. There's looks, and there's shocks of horror, and there's nasty comments, and and just even people allowing their kids to sort of with their jaw dropped to the floor because my little guy is flappy happy, as I call it. He's flapping his arms and he's vocalizing, making ooh, ooh, he's making sounds, and he's just in a happy disposition. But it's still not really understood out there. And I think there's still so much work to do. And I hurt for my kids. I really hurt for them. And when I get back into the car and I burst into tears, it breaks my heart too, as a parent. And I'm going to try and keep it together. But, I fear for them being, who they are out in society when the knowledge gap is still so big.
That's what I was wondering about. It's just, obviously it's a need, and you're really taking that head on, and it can probably seem like a big task. That's the case with a lot of people that see a problem in society, and you can't really afford to let it just go by the wayside. You're doing what you can to do that, and you've formed a company and an organization, let's call it, and I imagine there are many people looking for direction on this and how to amplify it. So maybe that's where some of these communication methods can be beneficial and the message gets amplified and so on. So you do have quite a large, like an email newsletter. I think you said it's a way for people to follow or just be informed. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, spectrumsupport.org is our charity's website. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, but please sign up to our newsletter and you'll be kept informed as to sort of where we are and what we're doing. We've got ambitions to ensure that this training is rolled out all across Australia as well as New Zealand. We are officially Australasia's first autism and law enforcement trainers. So we've been receiving correspondence from people all over Asia Pac to come and assist with their understanding between first responders and the community, which is really exciting for us. And a global pandemic is not going to stop us. So we've just had to change some of our delivery methodologies. But we're starting to finally get back with face-to-face training and a few things like that as well, which is good. Very, very good. Very promising.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I can imagine that this would be, it's difficult just to draw a border around it. Obviously, you've got first responders here in Australia, New Zealand, and maybe other close proximate areas. Is it the type of thing that needs a demonstration, or I imagine you need to look for, let's just say it's audiovisual, so it's not just a written materials. They need some media to see examples. What's the best way to help people be aware?
Yeah, so look, part of our training involves, I guess, really just a very broad understanding as to, firstly, what is autism, because a lot of people just simply don't understand what autism is. People will bucket it under mental health, and it is actually not a mental health condition. Autism is a neurological disorder. So there's still even understanding there. So we do a very basic overview as to what that is, what they may see in the field, from different stimming behaviors. And stimming is a self-regulatory behavior. So as I explained a little bit earlier, my son likes to flap his hands. He also does lots of vocalizations. One of my younger sons, he jumps up and down, and they have no concept of boundaries. So you as a stranger, he will go up to you and smell your abdomen within 3 seconds. And while he's 6, it's kind of cute and you can get away with it a little bit. But when he becomes a 6'4" strapping man who weighs 100 kilos and he wants to go and smell you, it's going to be extremely intimidating. So we go through a lot of those different behaviours, rocking back and forward. What is echolalia? Echolalia is something that's really, very prevalent with a lot of autistics, and echolalia is simply the repeating of what they hear. So if you as a first responder go up to somebody and say, "What's your name?" They'll go, "What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?" So echolalia is a repetition of what's been heard. But again, with law enforcement, that can be misconstrued as them mocking the police officer or, being disrespectful. It can cause a lot of different concerns. So look, absolutely, we go through that. Yes, there's video, because you have to be able to see what you're dealing with. But we also do physical demonstrations. How do you physically restrain somebody who is self-harming, who may be lashing out and hurting somebody else? It's regarded as domestic violence. So if you're, 12-year-old or 15-year-old or 32-year-old is having a meltdown in the house and you've got in their way and they give you a black eye, it's regarded as domestic violence. So again, we have to train law enforcement how to walk into those situations in a very calm demeanor, with empathy, with understanding that, in a heightened state of meltdown, they're not going to answer your questions, that you need to give them some space. But if you do need to physically restrain them, there are proper techniques to be able to do that. So it's theory, it's vision, but it's actually also very physical, because what they do day in and day out is physical.
Yeah, I mean, I think the law enforcement, it's a thread, again, for people trying to understand how it's like here in Australia. I mean, you've got New South Wales police force, you've got state-based policing, and if those are the same or different, maybe we can tackle it as a topic for another time. But
sure.
It's mainly it sounds like everyone would be on the same page with trying to do the right thing. Nobody's out to be extra harsh on an individual, but it's a lack of understanding that's leading to these adverse outcomes. And we're talking about deaths. People have been, I'll leave people to search the headlines on it, but there's been a few circumstances. There was on the positive case, there was, like you mentioned, a search and rescue just a few weeks ago. And I think it was a good result in the end. But the boy just went up for a bit of a wander, and I think he was out overnight. But the media got pretty hard on it, and they were saying, okay, they made sure to be very clear about when approaching him, he's nonverbal, and that was a level of awareness. I thought, oh, isn't that interesting that was able to get out so quickly? So do you think media plays a part in it, or is it purely like on the front line, just so that in the moment of the heat of it, because I imagine it's not like they intend to do the wrong thing, but they're so in a moment of personal protection or trying to understand the situation that they're just not reacting quick in the right way?
Look, media plays a big part in everything we do these days, and it's not necessarily commercial media, being television and radio. Social media also plays a really huge role in everything that we do in this day and age. So in those search and rescue cases, I think, what it did is it called out really wonderful Good Samaritans and volunteers who want to go and help and assist to locate these particular boys. And you had hundreds of volunteers who came and really gave their time to make a difference. And, and in the case of the little boy we were just talking about, he was found and he was safe, which is great. So look, at this point, for me, any media attention that is talking about autism, whether it be in a positive or negative light, it's still raising awareness, and it brings about conversations at the dinner table. It brings about conversations in the classroom, in the workplace. And I think those conversations are really critical for where we are in our state of awareness here in Australia. And look, whether we talk about law enforcement or the paramedics or, anybody, you don't know what you don't know. And law enforcement and our first responders have such a huge task ahead of them. They are expected to know everything about everybody and every single condition that exists. So, when they walk into a 000 scenario, they're supposed to recall everything in a split second. And that's the job that they take on board. And most of the time, that the encounters are really successful. But with autism and its prevalence, it was really something that had not been brought forth to the Australian first responders. And that's where I just said, I've got to bridge this gap now, and I have to do it immediately. And so that's, again, where Spectrum support really is starting to make a huge impact. I've had officers email me and call me and thank me because it has literally saved lives. The training has saved lives. They said, had we not sat in that training session, I just wouldn't have understood those behaviors that were being presented in front of me, and I would have handled it completely differently. Law enforcement are trained to go in and defuse and de-escalate in a very rapid time frame, which is why you see really horrible situations like young Courtney Topic, who was shot and killed within 41 seconds. It was their training. They didn't know any better. So you don't know what you don't know. And now, as we're rolling out this training, they understand that it can take somebody up to 40 seconds just to literally process the very first question that you asked, which was, what's your name? And if we did a pause here on this podcast, even for 10 seconds, the silence is awkward and deafening. So as a law enforcement officer, to then have to wait against everything that you've been trained to do for 40 seconds, so that's again why the training is so critical.
I'm just going to give that an extra couple of seconds for people to digest what that might be like. Obviously it's very vivid trying to imagine that scenario where there would be even a need. I don't know the age roughly these are happening, but perhaps they're a mix of ages that could be, and all sorts of different traits to look out for. So the signals may not be so obvious. So it would be very to think about what it would be like as a, just hearing it for the first time. You go with what you've been educated with, which might be that looks like a threatening situation. Someone's got in a threatening posture, or they're not walking back. It's all those things that they're just reading the signals incorrect for that circumstance.
Correct.
It doesn't always have to be something in their hand, a violent. It might just be not following police orders or first responder, and just not, and that kind of thing. It sends things down the wrong path, and then quickly. I'm not sure the protocol, but I imagine if you're not playing along with the normal course, then it escalates, and they think, well, we got to stop this.
Well, that's right. And autism, is often misconstrued. It's often believed for drug or alcohol intoxication. It's, insubordination. It's, you may have certain individuals who do that flat off or they run, whatever, there's a huge issue with young, or not just young, but autistics running into situations of danger. So you have them running across freeways or walking into dense bush forests, or, climbing onto a huge rock with a 15-meter fall behind, underneath their feet, and there's no concept or understanding of fear or danger. And these are, again, not typical scenarios that law enforcement are trained to deal with. So, again, it's why what we do is so critical, and we need to make sure that all of our first responders in the country have a really good knowledge base as to what they may experience once they get that 000 call, or 911 in the US.
That's right. Yeah. Every country would certainly. It'd be interesting to see the level of education and awareness happening out there, and maybe we can start this as a starting point for the conversation. I think that definitely appreciate you sharing that personal mission tied into. Sounds like it probably keep you fairly busy. So CEO of this organization. How do you manage the balance of things? You still have got the family aspect. You've got this major initiative. Do you have any help with it? Is it something that feels like, do you have a balance in your life, or is this is it weighting more towards you're all in and there's not a lot of time off?
Balance at the moment, look, with any organization, when you're you're starting up, there's no clock. There's no 24/7. There's 28 hours in a 24-hour day. And with my boys, I have typically worked around them. So in school holidays, if they're home, it can take me 5 hours just to respond to an email. But once the kids are asleep, I'll work from 7:30 at night till 1 o'clock in the morning, or I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I work from 4:30 till 8 o'clock. This year is a little bit different because all three boys are in school. So I finally, it's only week 2 back at school, but I don't know what to do with myself. I've got time during the day to actually get my work done. So it's a little bit of reprogramming for me to now work within a little bit more of the constraints of the day. But, if I receive a phone call at 2:00 in the morning with somebody who needs my help, then I answer that call. And look, COVID absolutely impacted our employment and our hiring capacity. I've always had a member of the community come and stand alongside me, and we deliver the training together because they've got lived experiences that they share with the officers. And that's, COVID absolutely impacted that. So we're hoping, it's our hope that come sort of March, April, we'll be back on track and we can start getting everybody back, getting the team back together,
Yeah, good on you. I mean, it's a better situation in Australia than elsewhere, obviously. So, but as soon as it's safe to get back to normal, then I'm sure it's good for everyone, especially with something like this. Look, I mean, there's so many aspects that I think we're going to come back to autism as a topic because I've seen it in the schools. I'm familiar with, I've got friends and parents. I've got autistic children, and I'm quite familiar with the whole landscape of things. And it's, I think everyone could benefit from a bit of awareness about what it is. And of course, that goes into your profession as well, what you're doing. But yeah, even just being yourself a parent and having to go through that and some of the steps of those light bulb moments of just trying to not self-diagnose, but do you seek another opinion to just increase your knowledge and just try to look at what's happening around you, especially in a family?
Yeah, look, I think I guess since our training sort of went out, we did a pretty big publicity launch with New South Wales Police Commissioner Mick Fuller last year. And since then, I've had lots of media outlets come and talk to me just about a range of different topics, from what Christmas presents do I buy my kids? How do I homeschool? What is it like when you do have 3 children with, such high support needs? How do you manage your balance between work and life? And, there's just been so many points of conversation that I've been able to share my personal journey, and I would be more than happy to share that side of life and not so, into the depth of my work life, because autism is, as we've said, it's on the rise, and the more awareness we can get out there, it drives acceptance, and that's what it's all about. We all want to be accepted in this life, for who we are, and we need to make sure that we're working toward that every day. I want my kids to be proud to walk out of the house and proud of who they are and proud of their achievements. And, right now, we've got a long way to go. So, and that's, the guy, a little while ago, I took my little guy to go and get a haircut, and he was cool. Going to the barber is a huge deal for us. So he was cool. We worked it out. We did all the visuals. He saw his brothers go. We did everything right. It only took us 3 years to work him up to this point, but we got there, and he was cool for 5 minutes. And then he flicked a switch and he went, I don't want to be here anymore. But we were like, like at a party where there's too much booze and someone's just like kind of done half the head. Like, I couldn't let him walk out of the salon with half his head done. So I'm like screaming at the lady and I'm going, get it done as fast as you can. And he was freaking out, the poor little darling. Anyway, so I get him out and I give him a big cuddle and thanking them for being so understanding and so sweet. And I get him out of the car park and I'm going, it's okay, buddy. You did a really, really great job. And then this elderly couple who was sitting at a cafe screamed at the top of their lungs going, I had to listen to that the whole time. And I was like, oh, okay, what do I do? And my priority was to console my little guy. And, and so there's this, anyway, the confrontation went on and on. And I have ended up screaming across the car park, and I said, my son is autistic. And he goes, I don't care. He just they didn't care. Anyway, so I got in the car and I had a big cry, and it was just horrible. But, those personal things that I deal with every day, I share them, because the more that I can share my personal journey and my personal experience with my family, the more people will have an understanding. Bullying in schools is huge. The amount of teenage girls that I've had email me, begging me, please come and educate my teachers. Please educate my principal. So look, I can share with you as much as you would like, because it's my life. It's my kid's life, and I'm here to help in any way I can.
Wow. I mean, I certainly, definitely appreciate the story that you can share. It's the seed of creating something which you have, and that's going to continue on. And there's an opportunity for others to join on as well. So that's the thing. These topics you're planting in the seed, and then it kind of goes out. So I imagine, is there some next step, or is there anything that's holding you back? Obviously, COVID and everything had to slow down and shut down, but looking forward, is it a clear path ahead? Or are there other major hurdles ahead?
Look, thank you for asking that. I think for us at the moment, my husband and I have completely self-funded our charity. So for us, we actually need to start now getting some donations in the door, some corporate sponsorships, because that allows us to employ some more people. And the more people we get on the team, the faster we can deliver our message. So are there political, restraints? Look, as far as law enforcement is concerned, and the ambulance fire brigade officers, they are all open to receiving this training. So we just need to go through the different state rules, because every state has just a slightly different way of operating. But for us at the moment, it's financial. So if anybody from corporate space would like to talk about sponsorships, we've got lots to offer, but donations too, if you can. We're literally saving lives with this training. So that's what we need at this point.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad we covered that. I mean, even just running a charity in itself, and that is an unknown for a lot of people. They have a good intention, but to do it efficiently and to essentially to campaign and bring people in the loop, and donations is, I think people are charitable across the world. It's just which platform are people supposed to use and all that. Do you have is there something set up for that at the moment, or is it just get in touch and then you work it out?
So look, if you want to make a single donation or a regular donation, you can go to our website, spectrumsupport.org, click on the donate button, and you can go from there. If you're interested in corporate sponsorship, then we offer as a charity a range of different packages. So just drop us an email again from the website, and we can have a chat about what your organisation would like to do and how we can partner together.
Excellent. Look, Kathrine, that has been great. I do see a lot of opportunity to chat about yourself personally and more to it. She mentioned earlier on that she's got an interest in music and singing, and we've got microphones here, so probably won't be too long to get her back and share some of the personal side. But yeah, I think it's important just to tackle exactly what you're working on, and we'll get it out there and get that conversation happening around, and we'll see. And for people to follow and get in touch, we got your website.
Yes.
Anything else? They can subscribe to the newsletter. I think that was the main thing.
The newsletter. Follow us on social media, and look, happy to come back anytime. But thank you so much for having me on the show today, and for talking about my work and just about autism.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, appreciate it. Thanks again.
Take care.